Isopropyl alcohol definitely helps to get the skull out, but it does make it rather slippery. Oh! But at least it went on the table this time, and not on the floor. Hiya, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonpish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. Now, I absolutely love making things for Halloween and Christmas, and as Halloween is coming up, I thought I'd make some ghosts and put some lights in them. Now, they're just basic moulds that I got from Temu, and I'll try and put the link in the description box below if you're interested in getting them. Their ghosts apparently are in, according to Claire the other day. Ghosts are in. I had no clue. I just liked them. Anyway, because this is quite a simple project, I thought I'd try and make it in a way that's helpful to those that are beginning into their resin journey. And if you're already experienced, then maybe you just want to watch along and have some fun and maybe a few laughs. Let's have a look. So these are the two ghost moulds that I bought from, what was that? From Temu. They are sold as candle moulds. Now, candle moulds are usually matte. These are very shiny. I did expect to have some kind of issue with these moulds, which is why I'm taking my time to look at them. Usually with this type of shiny mould, there's some kind of issue, and there actually was in one of the arms of one of them. But it didn't make that much difference. So what I'm going to do is to put some fairy lights into these moulds before I pour any resin in. These are a set of 15 fairy lights. I got them from Amazon, and you can find that link in my Amazon storefront. I'm scrunching them all up and placing them quite deep in the mould and just hooking the cable over the edge of the back. So I know that when I demold them, the cable will be at the back of the ghost. Now, I only had a limited amount of deep pour resin for these pieces. I knew there was going to be too much for these two, so I decided to get a skull mould out as well and do exactly the same with the skull mould. These pieces are going to take quite a lot of resin inside them, and you do need a deep pour resin for this type of mould. I'm going to be using Let's Resin Deep Pour for this pour. I have a discount code that is on the screen. It's also in the description box below. And I'm going to colour them with translucent colours so that the lights can shine through them. This one is pink from Let's Resin. It's not an alcohol ink, it's a resin dye, and it's definitely vibrant in the cup and in the bottle. And we'll see how this comes out, but I do think that this is one of the brightest translucents I've ever seen. It's quite neon, but it isn't. So I've poured a small amount into my mixed resin. I've actually mixed all the deep pour resin that I had left from Let's Resin, and if my maths hasn't failed me, I should have just about enough for these three moulds. So this pink is going to go into one of the ghost moulds. Just pouring it very, very gently over the lights. This is going to go into my pressure pot. You don't have to use a pressure pot, but as I have it, I do use it quite a bit. So I lift it up and place it in the pressure pot. I'll show you later what it looks like in the pressure pot. Then I have this green. Now, I'd never used it, so it wasn't even open. It is Just For You Online UK Premium Neon Lime. And this time of year is about the only time of year I like using green, because green is not my colour. Now, I did need quite a bit in this resin to get the green that I wanted. It was quite thin, but then it's lime, it's not dark green. But I still needed it to be translucent, so I didn't put too much in. I do like the idea of using neon colours when it comes to Halloween. I think neon colours just scream Halloween. And let's face it, screaming is the ideal thing for Halloween as well. So moving on to the skull, and I still had some pink left, so I poured that into the bottom of the skull, and the rest of the resin is still sitting clear in another jug off to one side. So I grabbed some yellow. For some reason I couldn't get this in focus, and I had resin on my gloves, so I didn't want to touch my camera. This is HXDFZX transparent resin pigment in citrine, and it's a really, really lovely yellow. Now I knew that these two resins were going to mix together. Deep pour resin has a longer working time, around 80 minutes, but the cure time is 48 to 72 hours, depending on how much pigment you have in the resin, and a few other things besides. So even though these pieces are going into the pressure pot and I'm pouring the colours separately, they have plenty of time just to have a dance and cure together. So they will change colour, the colours will mix. They go in the pressure pot and they stay there for 2 days. It's only been a few seconds for you, and you can see that it is gone orange. That's because the pink and the yellow have changed to orange in 2 days of curing. So it's time to demold and see how these have come out. Now the skull is quite difficult to demold, and I always have trouble with the skull, but I do love the skull mould, I really do. Isopropyl alcohol definitely helps to get the skull out, but it does make it rather slippery. But at least it went on the table this time and not on the floor. No harm done, it's perfectly fine, and this resin is completely cured. I did leave it 2 days, maybe I didn't need to, but I don't like taking resin out of a pressure pot when it hasn't reached its full curing time. Now the pink ghost was very light coloured. I was quite surprised how light this colour was. However, it does look really ghost-like, and that is what it's meant to be. I have to say this resin came out of these moulds very, very easily. And the green one is absolutely lovely, even though it's green. So I thought I'd make some more. I really like the neon colours, and therefore I'm going to go neon with this, and I'm using J Diction resin. The discount code for this is on the screen. It'll also be in the description box below. This is another great brand of deep pour resin, and it's actually easier to get hold of in the UK than the Let's resin. Again, it's a 2:1 mixing ratio, and it cures within 48 to 72 hours. So I measured out 180 grams of part A and 90 grams of part B. And I just thought I'd show you how I mix here. I'm using the xTool mixer. And as long as you keep the mixing paddle underneath the level of the resin, it mixes beautifully, but you still do need to scrape the edges and the sides of the mixing cup. Once that's done, I grab a couple of neon colours that I've got. Now these are both Resin 8 colours. I know Resin 8 doesn't exist anymore. These colours are amazing and I really want to use them, but I'm sure there's plenty of other companies out there that make neon colours. It's just I don't have any. I have these ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour mostly clear resin in these moulds. There's some really weird things going on in my room at the moment. Anyway, I'm giving the moulds a good squeeze to make sure I've got all the trapped air that potentially could cause bubbles or airlocks in these moulds, and then I'm going to fill them up nearly to the top, but not quite. Before I do that, I'm just going to mix a little bit of the colour into a tiny bit of resin. I want that completely mixed. Paste pigments can clump, and if you don't mix them completely, you could end up with a lump of colour at the bottom of your mould because they sink. But I did have to put quite a bit more yellow in than the green. The green was very pigmented, but I suppose the yellow is a lighter colour anyway, isn't it? When I'm happy that they're mixed, I pour the rest of the clear resin into the ghost moulds and fish out a little bit of something that's in there that I don't want in there. And then I pour the tiny amount, and there is a small amount here, maybe less than 10 ml, onto the top of the clear resin. This green is going to very gently mix with the clear, and as I'm putting a small amount just on the top of the clear resin, it should give a wispy colour throughout the clear resin. The less colour, the less wispiness. So it is a bit of a balancing game with this colour, but I do suggest a tiny amount. Pour it gently on the top, it will sink eventually. And hopefully I haven't put too much in that I end up with a solid yellow or solid green ghost. And I have a little bit of green left with this one, so I'm going to pour it in the centre, just to shake things up a bit. So this is the inside of my pressure pot, and that's where they'll sit for 48 hours. I close the lid and I do up the nuts on the sides. I then fill it up with the air compressor to around 4 bar. Yes, the air compressor is really noisy. Anyway, this is only 24 hours later. I completely lost track of time and I had no clue how long they'd been in the pressure pot. And I took them out early, which I do not like doing. This resin is still soft, but it is cured enough to be demolded. So after realising after demolding this one, I put some gloves on in case I got any fingerprints on the second one. But I'm really happy with the wispiness of this. Maybe a little bit too green, but you can see there is floatiness in there. Difficult to film though, but it's definitely there. I was then wondering if the yellow one would be the same kind of wispiness, or would that have just gone completely yellow and green. There is a green tint at the bottom, which is that little bit I dropped in the bottom. It isn't as wispy, but it's definitely yellow and green, and yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous in my opinion. I love it, but it is soft. I do leave them both to cure for another day. But first, I'm just going to show you how I put on the eyes and the mouth, because I think they need it. I'm just using a dot tool. I've got a little bit of black acrylic paint on the dot tool, and I'm going around the eye socket and the mouth socket. That's all I need to do, just to make sure you can see where the face is. The dot tool really helps. I've tried using paintbrushes before and I end up not being able to get those lines straight, and it does annoy me. But with a dot tool you just go round and round and round and get where you want to go. So what do the lights look like in the dark? They are fantastic in my opinion. I absolutely love these Halloween ghosts and the skull is a very funky colour. I really enjoyed making these pieces, and I know they're quite basic, but I love them. I think simple projects can make such an impact. The neon ones are stunning, and I actually went on and made another pink and another orange with the resin 8 neon pigments, and they are mesmerising. If you have a black light, get it out on Halloween, because really they are gorgeous. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be up to. I never know what I'm going to be up to. Have a great week. Happy crafting, and bye for now.